Riding the stock market often feels like this. Americans have taken that ride for more than 200 years. During the steepest drops, the crash of '29 and 1987, many investors bailed out. Experts say they would have done better staying on for the ride.
If you had kept your money and not been influenced by the emotion of the moment, perhaps you would have done very well.
$28!
Yes, great 43 anyway.
What happens on the trading floor affects everything, from your job to the home you buy. My friend Brandon is just learning the basics.
Yeah, what kind of games do you play? Do you have games at home, maybe?
PlayStation 2.
PlayStation, that's made by Sony, right?
Can I get shares of Sony?
Well, sure you can.
Wall Street got its name a few hundred years ago when they grazed cows and farmed. They needed something to keep them from escaping, so they built a wall and called it Wall Street.
The New York Stock Exchange has a wonderful history dating back to 1792 when a group of 24 stockbrokers got together. They were trading stock on the street. They signed an agreement stating that they would only work amongst themselves, created a private club.
That private club wasn't private for long. Wealthy and well-off investors started buying and selling shares of each other's companies, and the New York Stock Exchange arrived. It wasn't until the Wall Street Journal and the Dow Industrial Stock Average came to be in the late 1800s that more everyday Americans invested. And they got their news thanks to a device that was the 19th century version of the internet.
Company stock prices, every hour, every minute, as they changed, they come across the stock tickers in stockbrokers' offices, restaurants even.
Wow.
But even with all that information on the ticker, still only the wealthiest Americans were investing back then. It was not until more of us had disposable income that more everyday families and individuals started investing, and later buying mutual funds in the 70s and 80s, and index funds from the 90s till today. But back in the 20s, the market crashed. It happened a few times after that too, in 1987, then with the tech boom bubble bursting in the 90s, and each time, the market came back.
One of the great messages that came out of the crash of '87, this is not a time to necessarily panic and pull your money out of the market, but that markets go through natural cycles.
NASDAQ is the other big stock exchange. In fact, it is the largest electronic stock market in the world.
Well, Andy, there's no big trading floor here. Investors buy and sell everything online.
In fact, that's the way they trade virtually everything these days.
We just executed the trade.
The question is, do we still need all these men and women auctioning stocks in person when you can do it all online?
20
A lot of the business that we do here is already electronic, but yet we still have a very active trading floor with brokers representing clients because many of the clients want the value added that a broker can give him.
But NASDAQ thinks we no longer need trading floors.
Now every market in the world will be electronic. Every market in the world will trade electronically and bringing the ultimate buyers and securities directly together.
The average investor doesn't really care how the trade happens. They're more concerned with the commissions they pay, or if they're buying options, stocks, mutual funds, or just purchasing a small piece of the market, or all stocks traded in something called an index fund or an exchange-traded fund.
Rather than try to pick one company over another, he will buy the ETF that represents that sector. And so if the sector turns out to be good, the ETF will reflect that and go up in value.
Brandon, even with all the changes over these last few hundred years, doing business here on Wall Street is pretty much the same. I agree to sell you part of my company, you say you'll buy it, and then hope it's worth more in the future.
And there's so many ways that you can invest, mutual funds, index funds, and I could do it all myself online.
There is a lot to know about being a smart investor, but you and I have made a pretty good start today. Here on rainy Wall Street, New York, I'm Andy Field.
And I'm Brandon Batista for Money Track.